ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما وعملا وفقها في الدين يا رب العالمين وألحقنا بعبادك الصالحين آمين يا رب العالمين. اللهم فقهنا في الدين، اللهم فقهنا في الدين، اللهم فقهنا في الدين. يقول الله عز وجل: ومن يعظم شعائر الله فإنها من تقوى القلوب. Inshallah, we continue on our third lesson on Qurbani Laws in detail. Encyclopedia of Qurbani Laws. This is the title of the book by Mufti In'amul Haq Al-Qasimi. In'amul Haq Al-Qasimi. It's available on my YouTube. You can find the PDF, inshallah. We stopped at page 6. We finished page 61. We continue from page 62 on this lesson, inshallah. And we try to cover as much as we can because the day of Qurbani is near. Now we're already inside the 10 days, inside the 10 blessed days. These 10 days are more blessed than, they say, out of the whole year. The most blessed days of the year is these 10 days, and the most blessed nights of the year is the last 10 nights of Ramadan. Anyway, let's carry on with our topic of Qurbani. Here he gives a mas'ala. Of course, all the references are there, brothers. I told you before, I'm not going to give the references continuously. These books are huge books. The author, he's researched, he's a mufti of the highest caliber. Okay? He's graduate of Darul Uloom Deoband. He's teaching in Darul Uloom Benori town in Pakistan, one of the biggest Darul Ulooms in the world. There's no need to have a background check of the person. The person is very well known. He's a Shaykhul Hadith as well. Okay? The books that he refers to are in the volumes. It's literally in the minimum books he's quoting is like 10 volumes, 15 volumes. Okay? This research is a massive research that he's done. And then he's concluded with the simplest of forms and he's put it into alphabetic order. That's why we're going through this book, inshallah. And the laws are detailed compared to any other book on the topic of Qurbani. This is why we're going through this book, inshallah. Without further ado, we'll continue with our book. Here on page 62, he mentions at the time of purchasing, at the time when a person is going and purchasing an animal for Qurbani, the intention was not for Qurbani. So, for example, he bought it for other reasons, for business or for any other reason. Yeah. The intention then was made later to make this animal specifically for Qurbani. Yeah. Now, later on, when the time of Qurbani came, he made the intention he wants to make it for Qurbani. But at the time of purchasing, what matters is at the time of purchasing. At the time of purchasing, he didn't have the specific intention of that animal being slaughtered specifically for Qurbani. Okay? But later on, he changed his mind and he made the intention. Now, what he made later on doesn't, in fiqh, it doesn't matter. Okay? It doesn't matter. If at the time of slaughter, before the actual slaughter on the day of Eid, or the days of Eid, 3 days of Eid, the 10th, 11th, and 12th, if he gives another animal, it's completely fine. Completely fine. That animal is not specified. Unless at the time of purchasing, he specified that animal for Qurbani, then he has to give that animal for Qurbani. Is that understood? Simple? If the intention was different, then that animal doesn't become specified. Otherwise, if it is specifically bought for Qurbani, then the intention is specified. It's specific only for Qurbani and the animal must only be given for Qurbani. There are some exceptions to the rule. We'll come across them, inshallah. Okay, then he mentioned something mustahab. This is something which is recommended. Why? Because love is something that is necessary. Ismail alayhi salam, his dad loved him the most. This was his child after 80 years of asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You understand? It's something that he loved the most. This was the most dearest to him. So likewise, in a Qurbani animal as well, it is best to buy a Qurbani animal and at least have it for a couple of days. At least have it for a couple of days in order to rear it and bring love inside your heart. So at the time of Qurbani, you're going to feel something. You know, you're going to feel What Ibrahim alayhi salam felt a bit, maybe a percent, maybe less than a percent, Allahu A'lam. Yeah? Because that's your own son. It's completely on another level. But it is there in order that your reward is more greater and the feeling, the bond with that animal is there. Is that understood? The love for the animal increases and the greater reward is reaped. Next, we go on to why do we do Qurbani? Doing Qurbani itself is a great act of worship. Just like we pray Salah is a great act of worship. Likewise, Qurbani itself is a great act of worship from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And here, the verse that I quoted, وَمَن يُعَظِّمْ شَعَائِرَ اللَّهِ فَإِنَّهَا مِن تَقْوَى الْقُلُوبِ. Verily, those who look up, those who make, those who extol, those who look up to the sha'air of Allah. Sha'air means all those things which are the symbols of the religion. So, for example, Qurbani is part of our symbols of our religion. The beard is considered, according to majority of the ulama, as the symbols of the religion. Safa Marwa, for example, is considered from the symbols of religion. Many other examples can be given. So these are from the symbols of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and whoever praises these things is sure that he has taqwa inside his heart. This is definite that a person has taqwa inside his heart. A means of gaining close, a means of getting enormous rewards. For every single hair strand of the animal, you get reward. The bigger the animal, the more the reward. We know this. And this is an ibadah from the time of Hazrat Adam alayhi salam. Also, this is the third thing that he mentions inside the paragraph. That from the time of Adam alayhi salam, meaning Habil was the first one that made Qurbani. So sacrifice doesn't come only from Ibrahim alayhi salam. Sacrifice comes from the beginning of mankind. Time when mankind started, Qurbani also started. Okay, Habil was the son of Adam alayhi salam. He was the first one to perform the Qurbani and to give a sacrifice for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and it got accepted. Then we go into the next one on page 63. If the animal gets lost, what happens if the animal gets lost? Now there's two scenarios. One scenario is a person is sahib nisab. Sahib nisab is every person that is, according to the Hanafis at least, those who are not of the Hanafi madhab don't need to take this, but according to the Hanafis, because of various ahadith, various threats in ahadith, like for example, whoever does not perform the Qurbani must not even come to our salah, must not come to our Eidgah, must not pray and come and pray Eid Salah. It's a very severe threat for a person who doesn't perform Qurbani. Okay, so many other ahadith that the Hanafi ulama have looked at before they gave that opinion. And this is an opinion for over 1400 years of the Salafus Salihin until now. It's not a new opinion. Whoever is a Sahib Nisab, meaning a person who has the bare minimum amount throughout the whole year, and I spoke about this, majority of the ulama go with the opinion of silver, which is 500 pounds, approximately just over 500 pounds. Whoever has over 500 pounds inside the account, they have to give Qurbani. Okay, they have to give Qurbani. Now, these two scenarios, a person who's a Sahib Nisab, a person who's not a Sahib Nisab, meaning a Faqir, according to the Sharia, is Faqir. Okay, anyone that doesn't have 500 pounds inside the account is considered a Faqir, meaning poor person, meaning a poor person. Okay, not to say you belittle that person, no. But there's two scenarios according to fiqh. Let's quickly go through this. The person who is Sahib Nisab and he has zakat, he has to give zakat every year. That person, when he gives, and so he bought a sheep, let's say. He bought a sheep or he bought a cow, whichever the case. He bought one. That cow or that sheep gets lost. What does he do? He goes to the market. He can't find that sheep or that cow anymore. Goes to the marketplace. He goes and buys another sheep, let's say. When he buys another sheep, just before the day of Eid, on the day of Eid, he finds the sheep that was lost, the first sheep. Is that understood? The first sheep. He finds the first sheep. Now, what happened? He's got two. He bought two now animals for Qurbani. Now, originally, what's the hukum? Originally, the ruling is that it is wajib upon him to make a Qurbani. A Qurbani, one Qurbani. Wajib is one Qurbani. After he found the first animal, the second animal that he bought, he has a choice now to give any one animal in Qurbani. He doesn't need to give two. Why? Because originally, he only had to give one. Is that understood? Originally, his hukum is that he has to give one Qurbani. This is Sahib Nisab. This is someone who gives zakat. Who gives zakat every year. The majority of us. Majority of us. I don't think there's anyone that doesn't give zakat. Alhamdulillah. We're living in a country where, Alhamdulillah, Allah has sustained us better than others. This was the first scenario. Second scenario is a person who is not Sahib Nisab, who doesn't have the money. Now, him, out of reward, he wanted to join people who are giving Qurbani. Maybe he borrowed money or he done something, He came up with a plan. He bought a sheep. After he bought a sheep, that sheep got lost. Now, when he bought a sheep, was it necessary for him to give Qurbani? No. Original ruling is no. It wasn't necessary for him to give Qurbani because he's not Sahib Nisab. He doesn't have zakat, isn't it? So originally he's a poor person. He's under 500 pounds, for our sake, for our understanding. When he bought the Qurbani animal, it became wajib upon him to give Qurbani. You understand? The moment he bought the animal, originally he didn't have to give a Qurbani. It wasn't fard on him. It wasn't wajib on him. But the moment he bought it, it became compulsory. It became compulsory. Now that it got lost, yes, he went and bought another one. He doubled the trouble. That's the easiest way to put it. Now that he went and bought another one, he made it wajib upon him to give that one as well. So even if he finds the first one, he still has to go give both of them in Qurbani. You might think it's a bit unfair, but it's according to the ruling. The original ruling is that he was a poor person, he didn't have. But because he made it binding upon himself to do it, and then it got lost, and then he bought another one, and then that one became wajib as well. So both of them became wajib because at both instances, he was a faqir. He was a faqir. I hope people don't misunderstand this ruling, okay? It's a slightly some people might think of it to be unfair. It's not unfair. It's according to the ahkam of Sharia. Animals get exchanged. What if one animal gets exchanged for another animal? So at the time of Qurbani, we spoke about this before last lesson. Oh, no, this is slightly different. If an animal was purchased for Qurbani and another animal had to be given instead, the second animal should not be less than the value of the first. So, if let's say you bought a Qurbani animal, for whatever reason, you don't want to give that one. You want to give another, you bought another one, and you want to give the second one. The second one must not be less in price than the first one. That understood? Second one that you bought must not be less in price or less in value of meat and less in superiority of meat than the first one. If it is, the Qurbani will be accepted. The Qurbani will be accepted, but the difference in price must be given in some. The difference of the first animal to the second animal, because it's slightly lower category, the difference in price, so let's say there's a 50 pound difference in the price of this one and the first one that you wanted to keep, that 50 pound must be given in sadaqah to the poor. Here, when sadaqah is mentioned, it's talking about the poor specifically. Okay? Here, when it is mentioned in this book, sadaqah, it refers to giving to the poor only, deserving those who are the recipients of zakat, those who can take zakat, those who are eligible to take zakat. Okay, animals become unavailable or scarce. What happens? In a country where there's a huge flood, there's a war, Palestine, for example, right now. For whichever reason, natural disaster, whatever reason, huge tsunami, let's say, because of such a big event, the people are searching and searching for animals. The days of Qurbani are going, the 10th is gone, the 11th is gone, the 12th is nearly gone now. Can't find an animal. What should they do? They should give the price of an animal, whoever gives zakat, they must give the price of an animal or a price of one share of 7 to sadaqah, to the poor. This is what they have to give. We spoke about this last lesson, the age of the animal. Goat has to be 1 year. One day less than 1 year, your Qurbani is batil, invalid, It's not qurbani. Okay. Cow, buffalo, ox. We also spoke about these. Cow, buffalo, ox must be minimum 2 years old. A camel has to be 5 years old. And one day under the 5-year-old mark of a camel, or one day under the 2-year-old cow, ox, buffalo, your qurbani will not be done. Your qurbani will not be done. Here, one exception is given. One exception is given for sheep, not for goats, for sheep only. Sheep only. Here, if a sheep is more than 6 months, not 1 day less, more than 6 months, of course, over 1 year old is completely allowed. Okay, what's the difference between a sheep and a lamb? This is something a person asked me today. I was like, subhanallah, how do people not understand this? Anything under 1 year old is considered as lamb. So when you say spring lamb, you mean anything under than 1 year old. You don't mean by anything over 1 year. 1 year old, it becomes a sheep. It becomes an adult. Okay, it becomes mature. That's our understanding anyway. So spring lamb, you have to make sure wherever you're giving qurbani that is definitely over 1 year old. If they call it spring lamb, because I know some places they do call it spring lamb. A spring lamb, you must make sure that it is definitely over 1 year old. If it's not 1 year old, your qurbani will not be valid. Your qurbani will not be valid. Here, sheep, there's a slight exception. Is ulama, they make a slight exception because of the hadith, a hadith on this topic, and there's contradictory opinions. Here, the opinion that we follow is that when a sheep is over 6 months old, but if you put it amongst those sheep which are 1 year old, then it looks similar. It looks same. You can't see the difference. You don't know the difference. Meaning it's so fat and it's so big that amongst the 1 year olds it's the same. So if it's such a sheep, then it will be allowed. So this is the only exception. Okay? So it's so fat, so strong, so plump that it's similar to the 1 year olds. This is the only exception. But generally speaking, it must be over 1 year old. Okay? If an animal falls short by 1 day in reaching the 1 year mark, the animal will not be valid for qurbani. I said this before. If there is predominant certainty that the animal of an animal having reached the right age, it will be valid to make its qurbani, otherwise not. If an animal appears to be the right age, but it is known with certainty that it has still not reached that mark, qurbani of such animal will not be valid. Okay? We spoke about this. If an animal is like, and it appears to be under the age, yeah. So, for example, sheep is 1 year old, or a goat is 1 year old, cow is 2 year old, but because of the health of the cow, maybe the health of the cow is not the same as the other ones that are big. It's probably skinny, and you can see the bones and everything. In that case, as long as the age it is of 2 year old if it's a cow, and 1 year old if it's a goat or a sheep, then it's fine. As long as it's reached the age, then it's completely fine. As long as you know for certain that it has definitely reached the age, even though it looks less than 1 year old. Okay, but it's definitely reached the age. The thing here is the age. Must reach the age. Then he goes on to the next one, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is raziq. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala provides, and there will never be a shortage of cattle. There will never be a shortage of cattle. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala provides. Allah is the sole provider. Likewise in the fish, see the huge fishes in the sea, who provides for them? Allah provides for them. You know? Next mas'ala he goes on to is partnership. If, for example, in one household, there's a father and there's 4 sons. For example, the father and 4 sons all live under one household, all do the same business, in the same business. Their money comes inside the same business. If they are all considered as shareholders, each individually, each of them, if they are sahib nisab, then each of them have to give a qurbani share separately. Qurbani share separately. So 5 of them. Father plus the 4 sons. Now, if their wives are also sahib nisab, then the wives have to give qurbani. If their children are over the age of maturity, then you have to give the names of the children as well. So it increases and increases. And it is wajib upon all of them to give separately. Wajib upon all of them to give, meaning not separately in this. You give one animal in 7 shares, that's fine. We said. Even if the father passes away and everything is still in a share collective, like a share partnership, still inside that same business, and all of them are still considered as sahib and nisab, then even in that case, all of them are still shareholders. All of them are still in a partnership in a business. So therefore, all of them still must give their share of qurbani. Okay, then he goes on to another mas'ala on page 67, qurbani of Jersey cows. What are Jersey cows? Jersey cows are those cows which were impregnated abnormally, meaning not abnormally, but like they, like our circumstance, unfortunately nowadays, we have IVF. Okay, so in the animals, IVF, so to say, they were basically impregnated. The male's sperm was taken out and then it was injected into the female. Okay, it wasn't done the natural way, basically. It wasn't done the natural way. Are those cows allowed to be given qurbani? They are allowed. Ideally, they shouldn't be. Ideally, they should not be, because in qurbani, you should try to give the best of form. Understand? Try to give the best of form, those that have no doubt at all. Then we go on to the next mas'ala here. Skin disease. If the animal has a skin disease which does not reach the meat of the animal, it's on top. As long as the skin disease is on top, it's fine. When it reaches the meat, that animal is not valid for qurbani. That animal is not valid for qurbani at all, according to our scholars, all of the Hanafi scholars. Okay, then he mentions another mas'ala. Dry the meat. We spoke about the tashriq. What does tashriq mean? Ayyamut tashriq, 3 days of tashriq. Tashriq, according to some scholars, one of the opinion is they used to cut the meat and they used to leave it to dry, like utki. We do it to fish, they do it to meat. Arabs are Arabs, isn't it? So if you find this in South Africa as well, they dry the meat. So this is called tashriq, to dry the meat in the blazing sun. Okay, tashriqul laham. Anyway, to make biltong, mean to make dried meat, is completely allowed, and you are allowed to eat from that meat as well. There's nothing. It is, in fact, it is mustahab. Rasulullah done it. Sahabas used to. Okay, and if it is sold, then that amount must be given in sadaqah, because animal of qurbani cannot be sold. Okay, the meat of the animal or the fat of the animal or any parts of the animal of the qurbani cannot be sold. If it was sold, any part of the animal, then that amount must be given to the poor as sadaqah. Hajisa, those who are lucky that are in Hajj, yallah, make dua for us. 4 people here. Allah bless us, inshallah, to go Hajj again and again. Imam Abu Hanifa went 55 times. 55 times. He only lived for 70 years and he went for 55 times. From the age of 15. The age of 15, he's been going until the age of 70. Allah. So Imam Abu Hanifa. This is why you follow his fiqh. This is why you follow his fiqh. His a'mal, you'll never be able to come close to. No matter how many people criticize him. They only criticize out of jealousy. Okay, Haji Sab, he needs to, majority of our Haji Sabs are Musafir. Majority. Now, it is not wajib upon the Haji as a Musafir, if he's a Musafir, that the 15-day mark, staying in one place. Majority of our Hajis, we don't go and stay in one place for more than. Okay? So, a Haji Sab who is a Musafir, who is a traveler, considered a traveler according to the Sharia, it is not wajib upon him to give qurbani. Not wajib. Give qurbani. The one that you're going to get mixed up is those who went for Hajj, is the animal that he has to sacrifice after Hajj. Yes, that one is damush shukr. Damush shukr. That is completely different from qurbani. Qurbani is that which you give at your homeland, generally your homeland, in the place that you live in. You can give it. I'm not saying you can't give it. You can give it in other places, but generally it's in your hometown. The qurbani is generally celebrated in your hometown. The Haji Sab, the qurbani, it's not obligatory upon him to give qurbani. It is obligatory upon him to give damush shukr. Damush shukr. These are completely two different sacrifices. If he wants to give a qurbani back home as well, completely fine. He gets more reward. You understand? He gets more reward. For the muqim that is living in Makkah, the muqim, the resident that is living in Makkah, for him, if he has more over and above the amount that he's doing the qurbani, doing the hajj, then he has to give qurbani. Okay, he has to give qurbani as well as the damu shukr of hajj. Okay, damu shukr is given in hajj tamattu or hajj al-qiran. Those two hajjis. Inshallah, we'll go through a hajj course in the future. So, to regard both of these damu shukr and qurbani together as one, completely wrong and invalid. Completely wrong and invalid. Your qurbani will not be done. Your damu shukr has to be given there at that point because your damu shukr is wajib. And you can't mix the two between the two. And you can't say two in one as well. No such thing as two in one in this place. Okay? If the residents of Makkah are sahib and nisab, and are performing, we spoke about this. They are performing the hajj and they are sahib and nisab. They have over and above the expenses of hajj, plus they give zakat every year. Then in that case, qurbani will be compulsory upon them as well as the damu shukr that they have to give. Okay, cutting the hair. This is a big mas'ala that comes up in these 10 days. According to the Hanafis, not cutting the hair until, so in these 10 days, you're not allowed to cut the hair of the first 10 days of Dhul Hijjah until your animal has been sacrificed. Until your animal has been sacrificed. Until you get the news. So for example, here, if a person gives his sacrifice in Bangladesh or Pakistan or India, he shouldn't. It's mustahab, it's recommended. It's not wajib. It's not wajib. Those who want to understand, hadith is, there's many orders. Some orders are for wujub. Some of them are for obligation. Some of them are for recommendation. Different orders are given for different reasons. Okay, how do we understand that? We go to the fuqaha, go to the muftis. Okay, they tell us what this order of Rasulullah in hadith means. Muhaddith will not be able to explain to you. Okay, he will not be able to understand the nitty-gritty of the inner meanings of the hadith. This is why we are going through fiqh. So, any person performing qurbani, it is mustahab, only recommended and preferable not to cut your hair and nails in those 10 days until your animal is sacrificed. Not until your Eid Salah is done. Oh, no. Because your Eid, or if your animal is being sacrificed in Bangladesh and the Eid is next day, so you should cut your nails and hair the next day after you hear that your animal has already been. Is that understood? This hadith is mentioned in many of the Tirmidhi, Muslim, Abu Dawud, Nasa'i, on the authority of Salama. This is the opinion of Imam Shafi'i, Imam Malik, and Imam Ahmad. Some of them, they say it's wajib not to cut nails and hair in these 10 days. This is why you got the brothers sending messages all over the internet, all over social media. Oh, you're not allowed to cut. Nobody said you're not allowed to cut. You can cut, but it's preferable not to cut. Mustahab not to cut. Why? Because of the hadith. Because of the hadith. If a person, for example, he's going over the days of 40 days. 40 days, if he goes over, meaning a person didn't cut his nails for 40 days or he didn't cut his pubic hair for 40 days, what happens? And the 10 days of Dhul Hijjah is here. He has to. It's wajib. It's wajib to cut. He'll be sinful for not cutting. For every single prayer that he's praying is sinful. You understand? So in that case, it is wajib. You have to go against this hadith. What happens when the contradiction happens? So it's not that easy to understand. Inshallah, after that, we finish. Okay, there are 7 parts of the animals of a halal animal that is haram to eat. 7 portions of the animal, 7 parts of the animal, organs of the animal that are haram to eat. Okay, what are these? Number 1, flowing blood. What does flowing blood mean? Flowing blood means at the time of slaughter, the blood that gushes out. This is called flowing blood. Not the blood that is found on the meat after cutting. That's not flowing blood. That understood? So the blood that gushes forth at the time of slaughter. The male and female genitalia, absolutely haram to eat, of a halal animal that's been slaughtered in a halal way, but these parts are absolutely haram. The male and the female genitalia, private parts. Male testicles, also haram. The sheep or the cow. The back private part also of animal is also haram to eat. The glands. The glands are those basically like sweat and digestive enzymes and tears and all these are produced inside the glands. Glands are also prohibited to eat. Bladder. Bladder is receives urine from your kidneys, isn't it? Receives urine from your kidneys and stores it as excreta. So that part of the bladder is not allowed to eat. Kidney is allowed. Kidney is allowed. Spleen. Spleen is where it's like a blood filter. Spleen is not allowed. Okay. Spleen is the blood filter of the organ which filters your blood inside you. So this is not allowed. Another here in the classical books, two of the classical books, Kanzul Daqa'iq and Tahawi, it mentions the marrow inside the spine. The marrow inside the long spine. This is an incorrect opinion. Okay, majority of the ulama and the fuqaha and the muftis have given opinion against it. Majority of the fuqaha of the Hanafiya, they said no, this is not the case. The marrow inside the bone is completely halal, whichever bone it may be. Is that understood? Whichever bone it may be. It is halal. It is completely allowed to eat marrow. Slaughtering by one who is. This is another mas'ala where, for example, are you allowed to give a child that was born out of wedlock into imamat? Ideally not, because of his status in society. People know of his status and they know that he's born from father that's unknown. Then it becomes problematic because you start looking down upon the imam. And the imam is the person who's the leader of the whole community. Generally, that was the case back then. Maybe it's not now, but it was once upon a time. Okay? Majority of our Islamic history, it was. Imam, if you look at the qualifications of the imam, it was so high for you to become an imam. Very high. Look at the Ottoman list. It's crazy, absolutely unbelievable. The prerequisites of an imam. So, is it allowed for an individual who is an illegitimate child to, what do you call? It will be permissible, okay? It will be permissible to eat the animal slaughtered by a person who's illegitimate. That's fine. Completely fine. There's nothing, because he's a Muslim. End of the day, he's a Muslim, okay? Where status matters, it becomes a problem. In marriage, in salah, in leading salah, in many other things, it becomes an issue, okay? There is such thing as called status. There is. In Sharia, not culture. I'm not talking about culture. I'm not talking about Bengali culture here. I'm talking about Islam. Compatibility and status does matter. A pregnant animal. Okay, what happens to a pregnant animal? Here, there's a couple of scenarios. Let's give you the more common scenario. It is makruh to slaughter an animal that you know is pregnant and is going to deliver anytime soon. Okay, it's makruh to do it, but it's allowed. It's allowed to do it. Makruh, slight dislike. If a person, before slaughter, a calf comes out or baby sheep comes out, lamb comes out, in that case, you have to slaughter the sheep as well as the mother. And then both will be halal. Of course, if it comes out alive, condition is it must come out alive. If it comes out alive, the baby, before slaughter or after slaughter, in both scenarios, before it comes out, meaning the childbirth is done, not the child, but here the birth of the cow or the sheep is done before or after slaughter, after the slaughtering the mother. In both cases, if it comes out alive, it has to be slaughtered and it becomes halal to eat and consume. That understood? But if it comes out dead, then it's dead. In both cases, if it comes out dead, then it's dead. You're not allowed to eat it. It's carrion. It's dead, like corpse. Mayyit. Mayyit is not allowed. حرمت عليكم الميتة. Okay, another masala he mentions here. What if the lamb or the calf that came out wasn't slaughtered? Oh. The mother was slaughtered for Qurbani, but the baby calf wasn't slaughtered. And the days of Qurbani passed. Okay? Then in that case, you have to give that animal a sadaqah, meaning you have to slaughter that animal and give it to sadaqah. If that animal wasn't slaughtered and a whole year went past, meaning that animal grew up, maybe 2 years, 1 year passed, and now the sheep became a proper sheep, and another person gives a wajib qurbani on that sheep is not valid. That sheep is not valid because it was supposed to be slaughtered. It was basically a tabi' with the mother. It's the hukum here is it's followed with the mother. It's considered as part of the sacrificial animal of the first one, the one that gave qurbani of the first one. So that's another mas'ala there. Okay, another mas'ala, I mentioned this last week. Those who understood. The shareholders of a big animal, maximum share is 7 shares. You can do 5 people can share one animal, but all the shares must be exactly the same. No one can have one share, meaning no one can have half the animal, another person has quarter of the animal, another person has quarter of the animal. This is absolutely haram. Your qurbani will be invalid. Okay, all the shares. So for example, 5 of us gathered together, we bought a cow and we said we're going to give it for qurbani. Completely, the cow is completely jais for qurbani. Okay? We take equal shares, 5 equal shares, alhamdulillah. If the shares are not equal, then your qurbani is not valid. The shares, I told you, has to be weighed, not just on andaz, not on just thinking that it's, yeah. The shares can be given, one of the shares can be given for either qurbani or aqiqah. Okay, one of the shares. So from the 7 shares, 6 give it for wajib qurbani and 1 give it for aqiqah. It is completely fine. Your qurbani is done. Okay, your qurbani is done. No problem. If 8 people won't be allowed anyway. There is no point of even mentioning. Itching animal. An animal that has an itching disease, of course, we spoke about this similar. As long as the meat is not affected, the animal is allowed to be given as qurbani. The meat is affected, not allowed. Not allowed. A castrated animal. Rasulullah slaughtered a castrated animal himself. So this shows absolute permissibility. Now, castration is not a bad thing. In fact, it is a good thing for the animal sometimes. Okay? If done out of the animal to become better in health, because normally they become stronger, they become less aggressive, all these points that he gives, the meat becomes more delicious. It's less, it gives out less odor. It gives out less odor. So a castrated animal in some sense is actually better than normal animals. Okay? For the testicles to be removed or for it to be suppressed in some way or another is not a deficiency in qurbani animal. Okay? It's not a deficiency in qurbani animal. If a person castrates an animal for no reason, just for fun, this is haram. This is haram to do. This is wrong to do to an animal. Okay? But of course, the animal will still be halal to slaughter. Okay? But a person should do it with the intention that it becomes better. Meat becomes better. That's generally the reason why they do it. Next mas'ala he mentions on page 74 is hermaphrodite. Hermaphrodite is an animal which is genderless. You don't know whether it's a male or a female. This animal cannot be given for qurbani. The animal cannot be given for qurbani at all. This is not fit for qurbani. It has both organs. Sometimes it has both organs, sometimes you use it both. Whatever the case, in this case, it is not permissible to give an animal that is an hermaphrodite. Okay, fat of the animal. Fat of the animal generally in this country is disposed. In poorer countries, it's not disposed. Okay, it's not disposed. Sometimes they even sell it. If you sell it, then you have to give the price in, like we said before, you have to give the price in sadaqah. The amount of the price that you charged for the fat, it must be given in sadaqah. In this country, because our fat is so bad, And it's not even allowed for us to eat because of these hormonal animals and chemicals and all these poisons being fed inside and injected inside our animals because they're not organic. It's not even, shouldn't be even having the fat in these normal animals. Unless you know, like my father-in-law, he's got a farm, I told you. Unless you know one of those farms where it's only been grass-fed and none of the bad feed has been given and no injections has been given to the animal, then in that case, it's completely fine. You can have the fat. Fat is a good thing. Fat you need for the brain. Good fats. Good fats you need for the brain. You need for all of your organs to function. Your whole body, a lot of your body, majority of your body under your skin, all of it is fat from head to toe. So fats are good, but it has to be the right fats, not just the hormonal bad fats. Okay. If a person wants to dispute, because at Qurbani time there's a lot of fat that gathers together in one place. If all the shareholders are okay with the fat to be given, to be sold, then it's fine. It can be sold and the money can be given to the poor. That money can be given to the poor. Otherwise, generally here in this country, it's supposed to. So it's not us. In the poorer countries, you must be more cautious. Okay, that it mustn't be sold. It must be given to the fuqara, or the money of it must be given to the fuqara. One of the two. The rule regarding Qurbani, animals hide. Yes. Again, the animals hide, meaning the skin of the animal, whether you make leather out of it, whether you make a prayer mat out of it, whether you make a coat out of it. You can use it yourself. You can give it as a gift to a rich person, no problem. Or you can give it to a poor person, no problem. He can use it, he can make use of it. It is sold, then again, is wajib to give the price of that hide that was sold in sadaqah. The price of the skin, not the price of the animal. Okay? Not to misunderstand this. Okay? Because he charged for the skin, he must give that to the poor. This cannot be given as a salary. The skin of the animal, sometimes I've seen this in Bangladesh, they consider it to be the salary of the person that's slaughtering. Not allowed. Not allowed. If you want to give it as a gift, you can give it as a gift to him. Okay? But his fees must be his fees. That's separate. You can't cut from his fees. His fees are his fees. That's another thing. A person can charge a separate fees for his slaughtering. Specific slaughtering, cutting, all that stuff. You can take separate fees. It's fine. Completely fine. Completely allowed, jaiz, halal. And even it says, it mentions, even if he's an imam, he can still take fees like that. There's no dislike in a person being a butcher, basically, for a living. No dislike at all. He can be an imam and he can be a butcher at the same time. There's no dislike at all. Okay. Next, we go on to page 76. Stolen animal. If you bought the animal and that animal was sold by the person who stole it. You bought an animal from the person who stole it. Yes. From the person who stole it. And you find out he's the one that stole it. It will not be allowed for you to slaughter this animal. It will not be allowed for you to give this animal as Qurbani. You don't know, then you don't know. If you don't know, then you don't know. Later, if you found out, here. Later, if you found out, so let's say you slaughtered the animal already, Qurbani is already done. Yeah? And then the original owner comes and he says, this was my animal. Yeah? And then he says, look, you can eat it. It's slaughtered now. What can I do? Eat from it. No problem. Then in that case, your Qurbani is done, everything's done. No problem. You know, it's completely jaiz. Here, of course, it mentions the knife shouldn't be sharpened in front of the animal that is going to be slaughtered by the knife. And the knife must be sharpened. This is another condition because it amounts to less suffering for the animal. And this is what we want. This is what the Sharia wants. Okay. At the time of slaughter, the person who is slaughtering, this is the only person that says Bismillah Allahu Akbar. Everyone else doesn't need to say Bismillah Allahu Akbar. This is the custom. It's a customary thing we normally do. So the person slaughtering, he must be a Muslim. He cannot be a polytheist. He cannot be an atheist. He cannot be an agnostic. The person or persons, sometimes it's two people because it's a large animal. Okay, two people are holding on to the knife. But when two people are holding on, those two people have to say Bismillah Allahu Akbar. Have to. If one of them don't say it, then it's not jais. And both of them have to be Muslims. Muslims or Ahlul Kitab is a problem nowadays. Okay, Ahlul Kitab, let's leave the discussion out. Okay, let's leave that discussion out. It has to be a Muslim. Just leave it at that, inshallah. So, at the time of slaughter, only the people that are slaughtering must say Bismillah Allahu Akbar. The people that are holding the head, the leg, the tail, the legs, the nose that are around, they don't need to say Bismillah Allahu Akbar. If they do say it, then they are only doing it out of talqeen. They are only doing it out of for the person who's slaughtering, for him not to forget. Okay, for him not to forget. Okay, let's move on, inshallah. Go as fast as we can. Don't have much time. So if any one of the person that is slaughtering doesn't say Bismillah Allahu Akbar or just Bismillah or just Allahu Akbar, the animal will not be halal. Both of them or one of them, whoever is slaughtering, he must say Bismillah or Allahu Akbar or Bismillah Allahu Akbar, which is the sunnah. Small animals, what do they mean by small animals? Small animal means a male or a female goat or a sheep. Okay, this is what they mean by. That's it. We spoke about this. Deer, gazelle, antelope, all these things are not allowed for Qurbani. You can give it for other than Qurbani, but for Qurbani, it is only cattle. It is only an'am. An'am is mentioned inside the Quran. Only cattle. Cattle is considered as only these sheep, goat, and cow, and ox, and buffalo. That's it. And camel. No other animal can be given as Qurbani. Llama cannot be given Qurbani. No, llama is not considered as a camel. Many others. Any other animal cannot be given as Qurbani. See? Wild cow, yeah, is a cow. Still a cow. Wild cow can be given as Qurbani, no problem. Dumba is ram, the male sheep. Male sheep. Small village. Yes, this is another masala. It doesn't apply to us. But if you go to the very, very rural villages, then this masala will apply to you. Basically, the masala is in a village where they don't pray Jumu'ah, it is not wajib upon them to pray Jumu'ah. Meaning they don't have a police station, they don't have all the main facilities of an actual town. It's not a town, it's a village. It's a very rural village. Jumu'ah is not wajib upon them. In that place, it is allowed to give the Qurbani animal after Fajr. After Fajr Salah, it is allowed to give Qurbani. Because they don't have Eid Salah. They don't have Eid Salah from the Asr. They can do Qurbani after Fajr. But this is an exception. This is to do with rural areas. It's not to do with us. For us, we have to give it after Eid Salah. After Eid Namaz. Any time before Eid Namaz is not valid. The Qurbani is not valid. You have to do Qurbani again. Branding an animal. Branding an animal back in the days, it used to be with heated iron. Nowadays, they just mark it with spray or like a pen. No, it's completely allowed. It doesn't do anything to the animal. It doesn't harm the animal. It doesn't affect the meat of the animal. It is completely fine. It is permitted. It is allowed to brand the animal. Teeth, the teeth of the animal. So what's considered here is if the sheep or the cow is of age. The sheep and the goat is 1 year old. Cow is 2 year old. Camel is 5 year old. In these cases, even if they don't have teeth, it hasn't come out. Okay? Teeth hasn't come out, which is extremely rare. Extremely rare. In that case, it still will be allowed. It still will be allowed to give it as Qurbani because it has reached the age. Age is the main thing. Okay? Age is the main thing for the sheep, cow, or the camel. An animal that has no teeth at all, an animal, it is not valid to slaughter an animal for Qurbani which has no teeth at all. Okay? In that case, an animal which generally 99.9% of the cases, an animal which reaches that age, all of them have teeth. Okay? If an animal does not have teeth, then it is not befitting for Qurbani. You're not allowed to give it as Qurbani. Okay, here he also mentions if there are more teeth left, meaning more than half, teeth are there, then it is allowed to give it as Qurbani. It's less than half, then it's going to be not allowed. Okay. Age in this country is very easy. Other countries, it might be slightly difficult. They don't know the exact age of what day the animal was born. In this country, they know it's like a birth certificate. They have like a birth certificate. They know exactly which animal was born on which date. Okay. So if an animal's teeth has fallen out due to old age, then it is still completely, but it's allowed to graze, meaning it can eat fodder and it can eat grass, even though it doesn't have teeth. Then in that case, as long as it can eat fodder and graze, it is allowed. It is allowed to give it as Qurbani. If it can't graze, then it will not be. Then it will not be valid. It can't eat food anymore. Like we spoke about the mad animal. The mad animal is allowed to give Qurbani as long as it is not so mad that it can't eat anymore. It can't eat at all as well. Doesn't know how to eat anymore. Okay. The du'as regarding Qurbani. These are mustahab du'as. These are mustahab, recommended. It's not compulsory. If anyone leaves them, doesn't mean his Qurbani is not done. Okay? These are mustahab. What is the mustahab way? When lying the animal down, you say, Inni wajjahtu wajhiya lilladhi fatara as-samawati wal arda hanifa wa ma ana minal mushrikeen. And then, Inna salati wa nusuki wa mahyaya wa mamati lillahi rabbil alameen. These are two verses from different parts of the Quran. So you recite this when you lay the animal down. Then, just before slaughtering, you say, Allahumma minka wa laka. Oh Allah, it is from you and it is for you. It is from you and it is for you. Allahumma minka wa laka. And then, Bismillahi Allahu Akbar, you slaughter. After you slaughter, immediately you recite Allahumma taqabbalhu minni. Oh Allah, accept it from me. Kama taqabbalta, like you have accepted from Habibuna Muhammad min Habibika Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam wa Khalilika Ibrahim alayhi as-salatu was-salam. Okay, like you accepted from Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam and Ibrahim alayhi salam. So you say this dua. So before slaughter was when you lay the animal down, Inni wajjahtu wajhiya lilladhi fatara as-samawati wal arda hanifa wa ma ana minal mushrikeen. Inna salati wa nusuki wa mahyaya wa mamati lillahi rabbil alameen. Then before slaughter you say Allahumma minka wa laka. Oh Allah, it is from you and for you. And then Bismillahi Allahu Akbar, you slaughter the animal. After you slaughter the animal, Allahumma taqabbalhu minni. Allahumma taqabbalhu minni kama taqabbalta min Habibika Muhammad wa Khalilika Ibrahim alayhi as-salatu was. These are mustahab. The only thing which is necessary is to say Bismillah or to say Allahu Akbar. And to say Bismillah, Allahu Akbar is the best form. That understood? جزاكم الله خيرا سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك. We'll finish here inshallah.